As people mourn the death of Pope Francis, the Catholic Church prepares to choose his successor. New at 4, a closer look at how a new pope is elected and what happens next. And this Earth Day, U of A researchers are working to tackle plastic pollution. They're rethinking the way we use plastics and searching for sustainable solutions.
Covering news where you live. This is 5 News First at 4.
Well, first at 4, a plane making an emergency landing at Drake Field in Fayetteville after it lost power and caught on fire. The Fayetteville Police Department says the plane carrying 3 people reported smoke in the cockpit and a failing engine when it landed and ran off the tarmac of the airport. We're told all 3 people were checked on at Drake Field and were not injured. So far, no word on what caused the plane to catch fire.
Take a look at these temperatures across the area. It's a really nice day, low 80s, pretty much just about everywhere. The exception, Huntsville, Clarksville, still comfortably there in the 70s. 84 currently at Fort Smith, 81 our temperature in Fayetteville. A really nice evening on tap. In fact, the next several hours, mostly clear skies. Look at that beautiful sky off towards the north there from downtown Fayetteville. We'll drop into the 70s by around 7 o'clock eventually. Overnight tonight, I expect us to dip into the mid to upper 50s. Not a bad way to start off tomorrow at all. In the River Valley, beautiful look out there in Podo. We'll be in the 80s through at least about 7 o'clock. Once that sun sets, we'll begin that descent down into the low 60s. Overall, really comfortable weather. How much more of this can we expect? Well, we are tracking an increase in rain chances. Those rain chances do start to uptick tomorrow for some. We'll track those on future casts. Better rain chances for many of us Thursday, Friday, to a lesser extent Saturday, even potentially Sunday as well. 'Tis the season for some April showers out there, right? We'll track those in much more detail, all coming up here in just a few.
Thank you, Scott. Well, right now, preparations are underway for the funeral of Pope Francis as leaders of the Catholic Church begin discussing what's next. Senior clergy and Vatican officials paid their respects to Francis today. It was an intimate service at the Santa Marta Hotel where he laid in a coffin, adorned in a red robe and papal mitre. The Vatican announced a solemn service for the Pope will take place this weekend in St. Peter's Square. Thousands are expected to attend. There will be chanting in Latin as Pope Francis's body is moved in a solemn procession on Wednesday from Santa Marta to St. Peter's Basilica. That's where he'll lie in state until the funeral and burial.
There is a sense of a void that is somehow going to have to be filled, but coupled with that immediately is also the intrigue of what comes next.
World leaders are already making their way to Rome to attend that funeral. President Trump confirmed on social media that he plans to attend, along with First Lady Melania Trump. And now the Catholic Church is preparing to elect a new pope. Melissa Matani is taking a closer look at this centuries-old tradition that guides what happens after a pope dies.
The process to elect a pope is known as conclave, Latin for conclave, which translates as with key, because the voting takes place in top secret, with cardinals, the church's most senior officials, locked in the Vatican's Sistine Chapel. Here's how it works. First, the electors are chosen. These are cardinals who are less than 80 years old, and there are only 120 spots. Currently, there are 252 cardinals and 138 who meet the age requirements. Once that's decided, a special mass is held in the Sistine Chapel with all cardinals, electors and non-voting members. The electoral cardinals pledge on a Bible an oath of absolute secrecy. They are then sealed into the Vatican until a pope is elected to prevent any type of external influence on the decision process. Inside, each cardinal will write his choice on a piece of paper and then place it in a large chalice that's located in front of Michelangelo's fresco of the Last Judgment. Those votes are then opened and read aloud. It takes a 2/3 majority for an individual to be chosen as pope. So after the counting, the ballots are burned in a furnace with specific chemicals to make one of 2 kinds of coloured smoke. The smoke will be black if a pope has not been chosen and white if he has. And this is a sign that thousands of people that are camped out in St. Peter's Square will be looking for. Now, there can be up to 4 rounds of voting each day. In past centuries, papal elections could take weeks, but they've gone much faster in the 20th and 21st centuries. Once a new pope is chosen, that person will pick their papal name, which is different than their birth name. Those papal names like Benedict XVI, Francis, or John Paul II are often indicators of an individual's philosophy to the job. After that, a cardinal will announce to the world from the balcony overlooking St. Peter's Square, Habemus Papam, which means we have a pope. The new pontiff then introduces himself to the world.
Well, the markets made a big gain today, nearly recovering from Monday's losses. Despite those gains, though, the Dow is still set for one of the worst Aprils since the Great Depression. The International Monetary Fund is warning President Trump's tariffs will slow down the global and U.S. economies. But stocks pushed higher on remarks Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent made in a closed-door meeting. CBS News confirmed he told investors a trade war with China is unsustainable. Bessent says he expects the situation to de-escalate, even though these trade talks have yet to begin.
The President and the administration are setting the stage for a deal with China. So we feel everyone involved wants to see a trade deal happen, and the ball is moving in the right direction.
Meanwhile, President Trump continues to stand by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth after reports of the Pentagon chief shared details about military airstrikes in a private signal group chat that included his wife, brother, and attorney. The administration says this report is part of a smear campaign from disgruntled former Pentagon employees. And the FAA is investigating another scary moment involving an airliner, this time in Orlando. Chris Van Cleve has what went wrong.
Oh, hey, open the door.
Flames erupted from the engine of a Delta Airlines Airbus A330 Monday. Flight 1213, with 294 people on board,
Stay seated, stay calm.
had just pushed back from the gate in Orlando. It was heading for Atlanta. Kyle Becker was sitting in row 35.
I heard some people yelling fire, so I opened the window, looked, and there was fire on the engine.
What goes through your mind when you saw fire coming out of the engine?
A little scary, just never had happened to me before. Start thinking like, okay, what's next steps? Just trying to remain calm.
We're calling the fire truck right now.
Passengers evacuated using emergency exit slides as fire crews responded.
I was an airline pilot for a couple of decades, and certainly if you've got fire on the airplane and you have the opportunity to do so, get those passengers off the airplane and get them off quickly. The Airbus has an automatic start sequence, and ideally, the ignition occurs before the fuel is poured into it. It looks like somehow fuel got into the tailpipe and then it was ignited. It's supposed to happen the other way around.
In a statement, Delta apologized to customers, saying nothing is more important than safety. The airline says it received no initial reports of injuries. I'm Chris Van Cleve in Phoenix.
Well, today is the 55th celebration of Earth Day. It was first observed in 1970 to raise awareness about environmental issues, and now people around the world join in on Earth Day activities. Here are some ways you can make a positive impact on our planet. Before you throw something away, think about whether it can be recycled or repurposed, limit your water usage, and volunteer to pick up trash at a nearby park. You could also start a recycle drive or just spread the word on social media. And on this Earth Day, researchers at the U of A are working on innovative solutions to combat the growing plastic pollution crisis. From the Milo J. Schultz Agricultural Research and Extension Center, 5 News reporter Jose Carranza shares how.
Researchers from around the world provided a holistic report rethinking single-use plastics. That includes research from right here at the U of A's Agricultural Research Center. The numbers are staggering. Global plastic production has increased from 369 million tons in 2016 to more than 404 million metric tons in 2020. Researchers say about a third of all plastic produced is used for packaging, including single-use food containers. Scientists say microplastics put the issue beyond landfills. Researchers are finding microplastics, particles smaller than 5 millimeters, in waterways, and these particles carry toxic chemicals that can threaten wildlife and human health. Here at the U of A, Dr. Sun Ferreira, a food scientist, is exploring solutions through biodegradable plastics.
We call biofilms. When these films degrade, they will return to their natural state, which is fairly similar to how they are found in nature, not as a microplastics in this scenario.
Dr. Ferreira emphasizes that while these biodegradable alternatives are promising, they're likely 5 to 10 years away from a widespread adoption. That's why in the meantime, he encourages consumers to follow a expanded recycling slogan that's rethink, refuse, reduce, reuse, repair, and then recycle. In Fayetteville, covering news where you live, Jose Carranza, 5 News.